They told me that reality is solid, stubborn, immune to prayer or intention, but they were wrong. And I learned that the hard way, on a night when the world around me bent in a way I could no longer deny. If you're here, listening now, it's because some part of you already suspects that the rules you were taught are incomplete. And I need you awake for what comes next, because a single sentence, one you repeat without noticing, may be quietly rewriting your destiny. Before we go deeper, I want you to do something simple yet powerful. Write in the comments one phrase that mirrors what you desire most right now. Not for me, but for you. The act of naming a longing publicly seals it, sharpens it, calls it by its true weight. In Jewish mysticism, the moment a desire is spoken aloud, it stops being a ghost and becomes a guest, one that expects to be welcomed, tended, honored. That's why your comment matters more than you think. It is the first knock on a door you've been afraid to open. Now listen carefully. There is a ritual, old, guarded, whispered from teacher to student, that does not ask reality to change, it commands it. A ritual the millionaire rabbi shared with me only after testing my resolve, only after ensuring I understood the danger of misusing it. Because words are living things. They obey the direction you give them, but they also hold you accountable. If you speak carelessly, they turn on you with the same loyalty they would have used to elevate you. Maybe that's why, for so many years, everything in my life felt slightly misaligned, as if blessings hovered close yet never fully landed. I was doing everything right, working, praying, believing, and yet I felt suspended between hope and disappointment. The rabbi told me that almost everyone lives in this suspended state, not because they lack faith, but because they misuse the most powerful instrument they carry, their tongue. He leaned toward me, his voice barely above a whisper, and said, "There is one Jewish ritual that makes reality obey you, but most people sabotage it before it even starts." At that moment, something inside me tightened. I realized I had been walking through life half asleep, repeating phrases that disguised fear as humility, resignation as patience, stagnation as acceptance. And the universe, ever obedient, matched my words with perfect precision. What the rabbi revealed next shook me, not because it was mystical, but because it was painfully simple. He said, there is a phrase, one you think is harmless, that shuts the gates of blessing faster than any curse, and almost everyone says it. You may have said it today without realizing the spiritual consequences. Before I unveil that phrase, and before I show you the ritual that reverses its damage, I need to take you back to the source, to the ancient law that explains why your reality behaves the way it does. I remember the first time I heard the old teaching spoken not as metaphor, but as law. The rabbi placed his hand on an ancient book whose spine had cracked from generations of use, and he said, "In Judaism, reality is not found, it is formed." At that moment, the air around us seemed to change, as if the walls themselves leaned closer to listen. He opened the text and traced a single line with his finger. Words are vessels, and the world fills itself according to the vessel you choose. Until then, I had thought of words as tools, helpful, expressive, sometimes dangerous, but still secondary to action. He showed me how wrong I was. In Jewish mysticism, the universe responds first to vibration, then to motion. Thought is the spark, but speech is the flame. And once the flame rises, reality begins rearranging itself around its heat. The rabbi told me this truth isn't new. It was whispered by prophets, guarded by families like his, carried across deserts and oceans by those who understood that the world is pliable in the hands of someone who speaks with intention. His great-grandfather, a man named Yehuda, lived by this principle so fiercely that people traveled for days just to hear him speak a blessing. They said his words did not predict futures, they sculpted them. And when he passed, the tradition did not die. It became the quiet inheritance of those who listen deeply enough to claim it. But here is where the contrast sharpens. While ancient wisdom teaches that speech shapes existence, modern society teaches the opposite. Keep your expectations low, keep your words small, keep your desires quiet. We are conditioned to believe that humility means shrinking our voice, that safety lies in pretending everything is okay, even when our soul is starving. The rabbi shook his head when he spoke of this. People think silence protects them, he said, but silence is also a declaration. And then he leaned back, letting the weight of his words settle. The universe is not neutral. It mirrors whatever you broadcast. If you whisper lack, it echoes lack. If you murmur resignation, it returns stagnation. But if you speak expansion, the gates begin to open. Still, he warned me that most people fall into a trap so subtle they never notice it. They use language that appears harmless, but is spiritually catastrophic. They claim everything is fine, manageable, under control. They think these statements keep life steady, but in truth, they freeze spiritual momentum. That was when he hinted, just hinted, at the first fatal error, the one almost everyone commits without realizing they are shutting down their own blessings. He said, "There is a sentence that sounds peaceful but carries the vibration of spiritual death. It is the first barrier to the ritual I will show you." My pulse quickened. I sensed we were approaching the heart of the teaching, the place where ancient law collides with modern suffering. And the rabbi's voice, gentle yet unyielding, guided me deeper. "Before we go forward, you must understand the mistake you've spoken into your own life." The rabbi exhaled slowly, as if preparing me for something heavier than the room seemed able to hold. Then he said the words that would haunt me for weeks. "The first error is this, saying that everything is fine." At first, I almost laughed. How could something so common, so politely harmless, be spiritually dangerous? But the seriousness in his eyes stopped any trace of disbelief from forming on my tongue. He explained that when a person says, "I'm fine," or "it's okay," they are not describing reality. They are declaring it. And in Jewish spiritual law, a declaration is a contract. Whether you speak from fear, habit, or exhaustion, the universe interprets your words literally. When you tell life you need nothing more, it stops sending what was already on its way. The flow halts, the blessing pauses, the gates close as obediently as they would to a command carved in stone. I felt a tremor of recognition. How many times had I said those words? How many doors had I unknowingly shut? The rabbi continued, his tone steady. "You speak fullness before you are full. You name peace while you are still bleeding. You claim balance while drowning quietly under the surface. And the universe, ever loyal, takes your declaration as truth." To make me understand, he told me a story about his grandfather's neighbor, a kind man who owned a modest textile shop. The business had been struggling for months, yet whenever anyone asked how he was doing, he would smile and say, "Everything's good, I can't complain." The rabbi paused there, then added softly, "And because he claimed he could not complain, life gave him nothing more to hope for." Within 3 days, just 3, the supplier he depended on raised prices, his oldest machine broke down, and a new competitor opened across the street. It was not misfortune, the rabbi said, it was alignment. His words had shaped a world too small to hold a miracle, and the universe simply honored the contract he had unknowingly signed. As he spoke, I felt that same quiet shame most people feel when they realize they've been participating in their own suffering. But beneath the shame was something sharper, a sense of awakening, as if the fog around my life began to thin. I saw the pattern so clearly, how often I softened my truth to seem humble, how often I swallowed my hunger to appear content, how often I pretended the wound didn't hurt just to avoid burdening anyone. The rabbi lifted his gaze to mine, his voice calm but unyielding. The universe cannot give more to someone who insists they already have enough. This is why your blessings hovered but never arrived. His words echoed, rearranging the silence between us. And just as I opened my mouth to ask how to reverse this mistake, he leaned forward, lowering his voice to a whisper that felt like a doorway. Now you are ready to understand the law that explains why such a small sentence carries such a heavy cost. The rabbi didn't rush. He let the weight of the previous truth settle between us before he opened a new page in the ancient book resting on his lap. The parchment smelled of age and smoke, as if it had survived both fire and time. He tapped a line written in careful faded ink. "The Talmud teaches," he said, "that one must be cautious when speaking of fullness, for the full vessel receives nothing new." At first glance, it felt like poetic symbolism, beautiful, almost decorative. But the rabbi shook his head gently. "This is not metaphor. This is mechanics," he said, "spiritual physics." His voice deepened with a reverence that made my skin prickle, as if we were standing on the edge of something sacred and dangerous. He explained that in Jewish thought, the soul is a vessel designed to expand endlessly. Blessings do not fall randomly. They align themselves with available space. When a person declares themselves fine, good, or okay, they are essentially announcing that their vessel is already full. The spiritual system, precise and obedient, withdraws the flow. It refuses to overflow what you insist is complete. To help me grasp this invisible law, the rabbi offered a simple image. "Imagine," he said, "a cup filled to the brim. Water cannot enter. Even a single drop would spill wastefully over the edge. Now imagine a cup with space, empty, open, expectant. That cup invites abundance." His words painted the picture so vividly that I could almost see the liquid hesitating at the lip of a glass, unsure whether it was welcome. But he didn't stop at spiritual explanation. He moved slowly, deliberately into the psychology behind it, weaving ancient wisdom with modern understanding. "Your brain is a servant," he said. "It listens to your words and shapes your behavior accordingly. When you say, 'I'm fine,' your mind stops looking for solutions, opportunities, or miracles. It interprets your speech as a command to maintain the status quo." I felt something shift inside me, a mixture of discomfort and clarity, because he was naming truths I'd long suspected but never dared articulate. I had felt that stagnation, that quiet settling, that internal halt disguised as calm. And hearing it spoken aloud made the invisible machinery of my life suddenly visible. Then the rabbi leaned closer, lowering his voice into something intimate, almost confessional. "Most people fear acknowledging their emptiness," he said. "They believe admitting need makes them weak. But in our tradition, emptiness is invitation. It is the signal to the heavens that you are ready for more." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The room felt suspended, as though even the air was listening. Then he gave me a question, soft, simple, but cutting through the silence like a blade. "Where in your life have you been pretending you are full?" The question lingered, stretching into the quiet, revealing cracks I had long ignored. And just as the realization settled, the rabbi's expression changed, sharpened, almost as if he were preparing to show me something far more dangerous. "Because fullness," he murmured, "is only the first trap. The second one hides itself behind false victory." The rabbi's eyes narrowed, not with harshness, but with the kind of seriousness reserved for truths that wound before they heal. "The second error," he said, "is believing you have already won." His tone was calm, yet it sliced cleanly through the air. And something deep inside me stirred, because I knew that sensation too well. That quiet internal sigh after a small breakthrough. That subtle relaxation that whispers, "Now I can rest." He leaned back slightly, letting the chair creak beneath his weight. People mistake progress for completion, he continued. They taste the first drop of blessing and assume the well will never run dry. And in that assumption, they fall asleep. Then he smiled, not mockingly, but with a weary amusement, before adding, "And you know what happens to the creature who sleeps, yes? As my grandfather used to say, a sleeping crocodile becomes someone's handbag." I felt a reluctant laugh rising in my chest. The image was absurd, vivid, unmistakably human. Yet underneath the humor was a truth sharp enough to scratch bone. We celebrate too early. We ease our grip. We forget that spiritual momentum is fragile, that the universe responds to movement, not memory. The rabbi saw the understanding flicker across my face and nodded slowly, as if confirming something unspoken. To deepen the lesson, he shifted into the psychology behind it. Your mind is wired to conserve energy, he said. The moment it senses relief, it shuts down the systems that were pushing you forward. It stops scanning for opportunity. It stops generating motivation. It halts growth. Then his voice softened. This is why so many people rise a little, then fall hard. They confuse a stepping stone with a destination. I remembered times in my life when I had done exactly that. Moments when something finally went right and I loosened my grip, convinced the worst was over. But blessings are not trophies, they are bridges. Stop walking and the bridge collapses beneath your feet. The rabbi placed the ancient book gently on the table as if to free his hands for what came next. Spiritual law mirrors psychological law, he said. When you stop reaching, the universe stops responding. When you stop expanding, blessings stop arriving. Reality does not reward pause, it rewards perseverance. His words surged through me, unearthing memories, exposing the soft places where I had grown complacent. Victories I had mistaken for endings were suddenly illuminated as beginnings I had abandoned too soon. And with that realization came a pulse of shame, quickly followed by a strange sense of relief. Because if my stagnation was self-created, then so was my potential for movement. The rabbi watched me carefully, studying the shift in my expression. Then, after a long moment, he continued in a tone almost tender. But complacency is not the deadliest mistake. There is one error that cuts deeper than the first two. An error so subtle it disguises itself as truth. A lie so gentle that people embrace it as comfort, unaware it is dismantling their futures from within. He paused, not for drama, but for gravity. Now you are ready, he whispered, to face the lie that harms more destinies than any hardship ever could. The rabbi folded his hands, and for a moment he said nothing. The silence stretched long enough for my heartbeat to grow loud in my ears. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of something concealed for far too long. The third error, he said softly, is the most devastating, because it masquerades as truth. It is not a mistake of ignorance. It is a mistake of comfort. I felt myself lean in, almost involuntarily. He continued, the lie people tell themselves, the one that quietly poisons their destiny, is this: everything is truly okay. Nothing needs to change. His words landed like a slow, heavy stone in my chest. Because unlike the first error, which is spoken out of habit, and the second, which comes from premature relief, this one comes from fear disguised as peace. It's a lie the soul tells to avoid disruption, responsibility, or transformation. The rabbi rose from his chair and began to pace slowly, the wooden floor creaking beneath his steps. People cling to this lie, he said, because it allows them to stay still without guilt. If nothing needs to change, then no action is required. No risk, no courage, no stretching. He turned toward me. But the universe does not reward comfort. It rewards expansion. I swallowed hard, because I had told myself that lie before, countless times. Not because I believed it, but because I wanted to. I wanted the relief of pretending my life didn't require more of me. The rabbi's voice pulled me back. There is a study, he said, conducted in Israel years ago. They followed individuals who frequently used neutral or dismissive self-descriptions. Phrases like, "I'm okay," "it's manageable," or "it's nothing." Over time, these people showed a measurable decline, 12% on average, in income, motivation, and reported satisfaction. He paused to let the number settle. 12% may seem small, but over 5, 10, 15 years, it becomes a chasm. The statistic struck me, not because of its numerical precision, but because it confirmed something I had sensed without proof: the way language slowly erodes a person's horizon when used without intention. The rabbi approached the table again and placed his hand on its surface, grounding the moment. "This lie," he said, "is deadly because it feels so gentle. It whispers, not shouts. It reassures instead of warning. And so people surrender their future to it willingly." A sadness passed briefly through his eyes. "But here is the truth you must carry. Nothing is ever fully okay. Not because life is bleak, but because the soul is endless. There is always room to grow, always more to become, always another gate waiting to open." Then his voice shifted, no longer heavy, but bright with possibility. "And this is where your power returns. If a single sentence can close your destiny, another can open it. The shift begins not in effort, but in language." He straightened, and a faint smile touched his lips, the kind that appears when someone is about to reveal a long-guarded secret. "Because the moment you replace the lie with the right words," he said, "reality begins to obey. And now you are ready to learn the phrase that changes everything." The rabbi's smile lingered for just a breath, the kind of smile that signals a threshold, a doorway between what you were and what you are about to become. He sat back down slowly, as though settling into the exact position where truth prefers to be spoken. "Now," he said, "you are prepared for the revelation. The ritual begins with 3 words. Not prayers, not charms, not poetry. 3 words that realign the soul and command reality to respond." My pulse quickened. The room felt charged, as if every molecule paused to listen. He continued, "These words open the gates because they hold the perfect sequence: gratitude, motion, growth." His gaze met mine. "Without that sequence, your destiny stalls. With it, the world rearranges itself around you." Then he spoke the phrase, simple, grounded, strangely powerful: "Thank God I am working and growing." He said it slowly, as though placing each word into the air like a stone in a sacred foundation. He lifted his hand. "Let me show you why this works." He pointed to the first part. "Thank God." "Gratitude," he said, "is the ignition. It signals humility, reverence, alignment with the divine flow. It tells the universe, I recognize the blessings I have, and I am ready for more without entitlement." Gratitude opens the channel. Then he moved to the next part. "I am working." Action is the engine, he explained. When you declare motion, your mind turns on its forward-facing systems. You shift from survival mode into creation mode. The universe does not respond to desire alone. It responds to desire in motion. Even the smallest step counts as long as it is claimed. Finally, he tapped the last part, and growing. "This," he whispered, "is the expansion. Growth is the language of the soul. The moment you declare growth, you create space within yourself. Remember the vessel? Growth stretches it. Growth invites more. Growth signals readiness." I repeated the phrase quietly, feeling its rhythm settle into my chest. It didn't sound like a mantra. It sounded like a pact between me and life, between me and myself. The rabbi nodded. This formula works because it tells heaven and earth simultaneously. I am grateful for what I have, I am moving toward what I seek, and I am expanding to receive what is coming. Most prayers beg. This one aligns. Then he gave me a practical instruction delivered with the seriousness of a commandment. Set an alarm every morning at 9. When it rings, speak the phrase aloud. Not in your mind, with your mouth, with breath, with intention. Reality responds to sound, not silence. I couldn't help asking, why 9? A slight smile crossed his face. 9 is the number of truth. In our tradition, the number that stands unchanged no matter how it multiplies. It reminds you that truth, once spoken, continues to ripple outward. He leaned back again, eyes softening. Say this phrase daily, and your life will not remain as it is. It cannot. You have just given the universe a new instruction. He paused, letting the words settle, letting the air shift before saying, and now you must see what this transformation looks like when lived. The rabbi closed his eyes for a moment, as though summoning a memory from a distant corner of his mind. When he opened them again, there was a softness there, a warmth reserved only for stories that carry both truth and tenderness. Let me tell you about Dama Luzia, he said, a woman who proved that words can rewrite a life, even one that felt hopelessly fixed. I leaned in, sensing this story was not meant to entertain, but to reveal. She came to me, he continued, on a winter morning, wrapped in a coat that had seen too many seasons. Her eyes carried that quiet exhaustion people wear when they've spent years pretending to be strong. He paused. For more than a decade, she had lived in scarcity. Money slipping through her fingers, opportunities passing her by, relationships fracturing. Every time someone asked how she was, she answered with the same sentence, I'm managing. He shook his head slowly. But she was not managing. She was drowning quietly. And the universe, hearing her declaration of managing, kept her exactly in that state, never sinking completely, never rising at all. Then his tone shifted, infused with something like reverence. But everything changed the day she dared to speak a new phrase. He described how he taught her the ritual, the same 3-part formula he had just revealed to me. At first, she said it timidly, her voice trembling as if afraid to claim a future she had never tasted. Thank God, I am working and growing. The words felt too big for her, he said, like shoes she wasn't sure she deserved to wear. But she repeated them the next day and the next. 9 days, then 19, then 30. And slowly, so slowly at first she didn't notice, her world began to shift. Within 3 weeks, a neighbor offered her part-time work helping with bookkeeping. Within 6, the shop owner doubled her hours because he said he'd never met anyone so focused. By the 3rd month, a cousin reached out with an opportunity to manage a small kiosk. By the 5th, she was earning more than she ever had in her life. And the changes weren't only financial. The rabbi described how her posture changed, her voice strengthened, her laughter returned. Before the ritual, he said, she lived like a dim candle. After it, she moved like a lantern, steady, bright, guiding even others. Then he looked at me with a gentle firmness. You must understand something crucial. This transformation had nothing to do with luck. Dona Luzia was not chosen by fate. She chose alignment, and alignment always answers. He rested his palms on the table. And remember this, the ritual works for anyone, Jew, Christian, atheist, seeker, it doesn't matter. The mechanics of blessing respond to principle, not labels. Light does not check passports before shining. A calm settled over the room. I felt not just inspired, but implicated, as though the universe had leaned forward and said, now it's your turn. The rabbi's eyes softened again, but beneath the softness was something vast. Because after you witness transformation, he said, you must understand the philosophy that makes it possible. The rabbi's voice grew quieter, not weaker, quieter the way a river becomes still before revealing its depth. Now, he said, you must see the structure beneath everything I've told you. Without this, the ritual is just a phrase. With it, the ritual becomes a key. He opened the ancient book once more, though he didn't look at the words. It was as if he had memorized every line long ago. In the beginning, he murmured, God spoke, and the world unfolded. Not through force, not through hands, through speech. His fingertip brushed the page gently. This is the foundation of Jewish prosperity. Words create worlds. And when you speak with intention, you participate in the same creative act. He glanced at me, searching my expression. Do you understand? The ritual works because it imitates the original blueprint. When you speak gratitude, action, and growth, you are echoing the divine pattern, naming, forming, expanding. A warmth stirred in my chest at the simplicity of it, a simplicity that somehow felt cosmic. He continued, you have a choice every day. You can belong to the world of stagnation or the world of becoming. The universe will not decide for you. Heaven honors human choice more than human comfort. His gaze sharpened, though his tone remained gentle. This is why your words matter. They are not commentary. They are commands. They are blueprints. They are permissions. And every sentence you speak pulls you toward either contraction or expansion. He raised his hand as if holding something invisible. Think of your life as clay. If you speak passively, the clay dries. If you speak intentionally, the clay softens. If you speak expansively, the clay reshapes. And if you speak truthfully, truth in the sense of potential, not present condition, the clay becomes something greater than anything you've imagined. For a moment, I felt as if the walls around us dissolved, leaving only the weight of that idea suspended in the air. Then his tone shifted, carrying a quiet urgency. Test this for 7 days. 7 is the number of completion, the cycle through which creation itself was shaped. Speak the ritual each morning. Watch what changes. Not dramatically at first, but subtly, like the first tremor before an earthquake. He leaned toward me. You will notice coincidences. You will notice clarity. You will notice opportunities that feel handcrafted precisely for you. Not because you forced reality, but because you aligned with it. A pause, soft as a sigh. Many people wait for miracles, he said, not realizing that miracles wait for alignment. And alignment begins with a single instruction spoken consistently. He closed the book gently, as if sealing the lesson. You now understand the philosophy, the blueprint, the mechanism. But there is one final thing you need, something older than this ritual, older than my teachings, older than the stories I've shared. His eyes lowered slightly, almost reverently. It is time, he whispered, for the closing blessing and the final call that binds your path to the path of those who came before you. I felt the atmosphere shift as the rabbi placed both hands over the closed book, as though sealing everything we had uncovered beneath its worn leather cover. The room seemed quieter than before, as if even the air were preparing to witness something sacred. His voice, when it came, carried the softness of a farewell and the power of a doorway being opened. You have walked through the truth, he said. Now you must carry it. He paused just long enough for the weight of that responsibility to settle. Remember this. Do not say everything is fine. Do not shrink your reality to match your fear. Speak the words that expand you. Speak the words that bless you. Say, thank God, I am working and growing. And with each repetition, you will feel the shift. Slow, steady, undeniable. It felt like the entire journey condensed into a single beam of understanding, as if every mistake, every revelation, and every ritual had been leading to this exact moment. Still, the rabbi was not finished. He straightened his posture, and a solemn calm settled over his features. "Now receive this," he said, and his voice deepened. "May the Lord bless you and guard you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and show you grace. May the Lord lift his countenance toward you and grant you peace." The blessing washed over me like warm light, ancient yet alive, spoken in a tone that felt less like recitation and more like invocation. I felt something open inside me, not a door, but a window, letting in a wind I had forgotten how to breathe. For several breaths, we sat in silence, not emptiness, presence. The kind of presence that lingers only when truth has been spoken without hesitation. Then the rabbi leaned forward, his expression carrying both gentleness and purpose. "One last instruction," he said softly, "and it may be the most important of all. Share this wisdom with 3 people who need it, not to spread my teaching, not to honor me. Do it because blessing grows when it is given. Prosperity multiplies when it is shared. Light strengthens when it is passed from hand to hand." Something about that request felt like a closing circle, a final act of alignment. It wasn't a demand. It was an invitation to step into the same lineage that had shaped the rabbi, his ancestors, and every seeker who had carried this truth before me. He lifted the ancient book once more, bowed his head slightly, and then looked at me with a quiet certainty that settled into my bones. "Your life will not remain the same," he said, "not after this. Walk with intention, speak with alignment, grow without fear." And with that, the room seemed to release its final breath, as though blessing itself had completed its work.